Well, hello again and welcome to Tuesday Chat. It's great to have you sharing with us, and it's great to have different people involved. And this week we go way across to County Wexford and say hello to a familiar face to the North Tipperary area, Reverend Arthur Minion. Welcome, Arthur.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It's good to be with you all. Have very vivid memories of the Midlands and had a very, very enjoyable ministry there too. Still have, because I'm in contact with people on an ongoing basis up there. And of course, that's one of the great benefits, I suppose, of this form of medium and Facebook and various other social contact. In that way, it keeps us in contact with one another.
Yeah. Thank you, Arthur. Do you know what I've just realised? I give you the wrong title. You're Canon, Arthur Minion.
Oh, no, I'm not worried about things like that.
Yeah, well, I know you're not worried, but
yeah.
I should have got the right title. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, no, it's great, and I know just people will be pleased to see you, Arthur, and of your connections. But before we come maybe to the North Tipperary connection, maybe we'll go right back and sort of ask you about your early life and where you grew up and your sort of context as you grew up. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, I was born in County Carlow, on a beautiful place of the part of the world. It's on the side of the Castlecomer Plateau with fantastic views stretching out 70, 80 miles to the Blackstairs Mountains, right across the Wicklow Mountains, and even touching on the Dublin Mountains as well. Fantastic.
And that's the area as you come away from Carlow, towards Tipperary direction, or towards Portlaoise.
Well, if you were traveling to, yes, it's up on the left as you're traveling to Portlaoise. Yeah. If you're traveling towards Kilkenny, you have a better sight of the area, and you'll actually see part of the farmland on which my father and mother owned, and I grew up, is shown there. My father was always very proud of the green fields that could be seen from down in the valley. Basically, it's at the side, right along the Barrow Valley. As you go towards Kilkenny, it's up on the right-hand side, and it was there. Dairy farming predominantly, also beef. We had beef to 2-year-old beef, which farmers will be very familiar with that system, and then we had, our own crops, and for the house. We didn't produce crops for the market at all. It was really for our own house, vegetables, all kinds of things in that regard.
Brilliant.
So it was quite an idyllic sort of upbringing. I have one brother, 2 sisters as well. And then when we came to finishing national school, we attended Castlecomer for national school, which seemed to be quite some way away. It was 14 or 16 kilometers away. And but that was because of, back in the time, a bus system was provided, bus transport for the children of our area. Bilbo would have been our national school. When the school was closed, transportation was provided to bring the children to Castlecomer. Okay. And so we had quite a long journey every day to school. And then as a child, I was terribly sick with travel sickness. I hated the journey back and forth every day. But apart from that, things were good. Then went to secondary school boarding school in Kilkenny, Kilkenny College. And that was where I had my secondary education. And I left there then, and I worked at home on the farm for 3.5 years. Then I went to England and worked for a couple of years in England, and then eventually came back and started for the course in training for ordination then, which was just over 3 years. And then I was ordained at the age of 27. So that's a quick run through my childhood, really.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a journey. So, yeah, and sorry, I'm just recognizing as you refer to your family, you lost your mother relatively recently. So
yeah, my mother died in January of this year. That's my mother was a person of great faith, which was wonderful. and my father was too. We were blessed in their deaths in that regard, because they faced death with such fortitude, and it just was wonderful to be able to see them. There wasn't a sense of them dying or even losing them, as we described. There was a sense of them just passing from this life, and without maybe even discussing it. And I think my siblings would agree with this too. You had that sense in which the human flesh that we are made up of, bones and flesh and everything else, just could no longer give expression to the person inside.
Wow.
And therefore, you wouldn't want to hold them back, or a sense of holding them back from the life that they were going to have beyond this life. That now, in sort of very practical terms, on a very basic level, that's the sense we had with them in their passing. And yet there's a sense of sadness with my mother. We had a great sense of sadness because she was 75 years of age. She hadn't had any real apparent illness all her life as such, no hospital stays or whatever. But then she was very suddenly diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of COVID, and the COVID lockdown. And it was a turbulent year. We had the experience of her in the hospital being informed of her cancer while she was there, with no one present with her, no member of the family. She was gutted and devastated by the experience. She just handed the phone to the doctor who had informed her, and she was very broken on hearing the news, and it was very harshly told to her, to be honest, as we understand it. And she told him he would have to ring her daughter, my sister Marion, and inform her what you've just said to me. And it was a further 3 weeks before we got to see her after that. It was very hard. That was harsh and hard. We were down to the hospital. We managed to see her in a third-story room from a distance of, certainly wasn't any kind of voice communication distance. We were on the mobile phone and talking to her as we could see her in a room, very distant. And it was a help to her just to be able to see us at that kind of distance even. And that was limited. I mean, one of us per week would go down during this couple of weeks. And then she came home, and after that, treatments, she came down to Waterford here, and down to Wexford here with me. She stayed for a period for just over a month, and received treatment over in radium treatment in Waterford. That was of great benefit to her, though the medical profession thought, we can try it, but they weren't expecting any great help with it. And but it was powerful with her, and from the late summer, say August, September, she was quite bad then. For about 3 or 4 weeks in September, she was in hospital again, and that was awful. But from then until after Christmas, she was very good. It was just quite a great reprieve. But after Christmas, then about 2 weeks after Christmas, she got quite ill. I was a bit worried about it. I took 2 weeks off to go up and stay with her, and which was good. And then I stayed on the third week, and she died halfway through the third week. So that's the way it is. This is a story parallel to many other people that I've through COVID. And it was just the times that were in it. They were hard in various ways. But then everyone's story is hard in some way or other, even apart from COVID. People had terrible experiences. And you've got to remember that, I think, when you're looking at your own situation. And it was a time when we were in prayer, and we were in faith. All those things were tremendous for us. As we went through all of that. And I don't know, my personal experience is when you walk hand in hand with God in those situations, you see things in a very different light, as I as I experienced them, certainly I felt I saw them in a different light than similar situations have been described to me about people who have gone through them without faith. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not judging them as such. I'm only saying how it appeared to me.
It's the reality, and we see life through the lenses of our experience, and
yes.
And what you've shared there about your personal family journey through this testing time, I think just resonates with so many people.
Yeah. So that went off the target.
No, but this is the beauty of it, and I think we really appreciate you sharing about that.
So many people up the Midlands would have known my mother very well,
right,
because she and my father too, because they would have been very much, well, my father died while I was there, a couple of years just after I arrived in Shinrone and Hancon and that whole area, Kinnity and Dunkerrin. They were all my sort of area of work with the congregations there. But they would have known them very, very well, because my parents would have come with me, would have taken part in all kinds of different, whatever sort of activities, fundraising activities, social activities. There were an awful lot of them, and they would have been there for quite a lot of them. And those people would know and feel a great affinity with my parents, and that was evidenced in when they passed away as to the connections that they made with me and with my family in that time as well.
Lovely. Well, we'll come back to Shinrone in a moment. But I thought it was beautiful what you touched on a moment ago about the understanding of just that your mother's spirits, the human body could not contain who she was any longer. I thought that was a beautiful way of expressing it, and just your faith expressed there. Do we want to maybe jump back to your journey of faith over the years, or maybe your earlier years, or do you want to share anything about?
Well, you see, for me, I've had moments, very, very dramatic moments of being maybe even pulverized by the Holy Spirit, is how I would describe them. Now, when I say that, and I'm also aware that sometimes the person listening thinks, oh, he's going really off the radar here, that kind of thing. And I don't mean to be like that. I don't mean to be going off the radar with it. They've just been intensely powerful, and the experience was intensely invasive of my being when I was going through it. There have been lots of moments like that in terms of my personal relationship with God, and what I felt He is doing with me, for me, through me, or whatever in that regard.
Right.
But since I can't define, and you see, this is where sometimes in the breadth of our theology, in the breadth of our church, the kind of church people we are, in the breadth of all those things, people can be very quick to make judgments, and can be quite harsh in their judgment of whether they see you as being a Christian or not a Christian, or that sort of thing. I have defining moments that could be compared to a Damascus Road experience, or a St. Paul in his blinding flash of light experience. And maybe sometimes I say, I feel a little bit greedy of God that He gives them to me as well, not just one, but several, again and again. But right from when I could first think, I had a strong sense of faith, belief in God, hearing the stories of Jesus as a child, and hearing the accounts in the scriptures of Jesus as a child and his life, they were always animated from me in terms of faith, not just in terms of a historical account or a person who once existed, or you know, a life story of someone I had an affinity with. They were always more than that, just always more. And that's the way it was. And then I came to, so that's from when I was very young. And a lot of people would have felt that I always had, even going through school, and it was problematic for me in my relationship with other people of my own age, a strong sense of what was right and what was wrong.
Okay.
That's how most people would have sort of identified it at that stage. And so I grew up with that. That was the way it was. And then I went to secondary school then, and the vocation was equally as strong there. People in my own community at home would have always felt that, and even said to my father on occasions, I remember hearing it, you know, tell him that he was blessed in that he had a son who was going to go into the ministry. That's obviously among neighbors and friends, they would have perceived me as going into ministry at that age. This is when I was still in national school.
Right.
And then I go to secondary school. And in secondary school, I suppose on a faith level, one of the greatest challenges I had, as I was growing up over all those years, was, you know, what is the church where Christ is finding the most powerful expression of himself? And that caused me to move between different denominations to experience them, not leaving my own as such. I was a sort of rooted in my own because I grew up in that tradition, but I certainly did explore all kinds of different forms of spirituality and church, you know, and church. And I also looked at other religions as well during those years and pillaged them hard for a sense of meaning. You know, and then when I got to the age of 18, now I'm jumping an awful lot here, but when I got to the age of 18, 19, I suppose that's 17, 18, 19, as I was leaving secondary school, I really felt that to go into ministry, and I was being encouraged at that time to think about going into ministry, and at that stage, I took fright really with it. And I sort of felt on a very basic level that if I'm to go from here straight into college for ministry, I'll end up with this around my neck. Nobody will ever treat you the same. You'll never be treated as a normal human being. And you won't even know what that experience was ever like. See? And that really compromised me. But yet I had this driving vocation within me as well. So what I initially planned to do, I went to Gertine College for a year after secondary school, and I was really sort of taking a year out in a sense from my own mind. Went to Gertine, and I planned, and I had discussions at that time with a man who was very involved with the Church Missionary Society, and I was thinking of going and doing some missionary work over in another country at that stage. But at the end of that year in Gertine, I came home, and you know, my brother wasn't settled to take on farming life at that stage, I suppose that'd be fair to say. And I farmed for 3.5 years at home. And at the end of that period of time, then my brother had come back to the farm. I went to England then. I just sort of thought, because I'd got myself involved in as a parish reader in my own parish, and playing the organ every Sunday, really, in the parish as well. And I thought, I really didn't get away from all of this. I don't know why I felt I wanted to get away from it all, other than to have an experience of life that was totally separated from my upbringing. And then I was testing my vocation, I suppose, really, truthfully. So I went to England, and I worked for Revlon Cosmetics as a lab technician there for quite a while. And as I did, I started to become involved in a local church there as well, St. Michael and All Angels in Bournemouth.
Okay.
And I ended up in the choir. I say I ended up in the choir. I mean, I obviously joined the choir, then I found myself reading lessons and getting involved with the congregation. And I thought, oh, this, no matter where where I go, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back then, and I had actually, just before I'd gone to England, I'd gone forward at that stage for selection for ministry in the Church of Ireland through the selection procedures and the interviews in Dublin, and had been accepted for ministry. But
okay,
I kind of deferred it by 2 years then, which I was lucky that they allowed me to do that. But and then came back and started college in '89.
brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you were a couple of places before you came to Shinrone. And
I was in a curate in Bandon. Fantastic experience when I was down there, as well, down in Cork. Cork's a wonderful place, great people, very affable and outgoing. I found, got hook, line and sinker involved in community life in Bandon as well. A great community, great people. Left there, went to Sligo. I had been married, and my marriage broke in Sligo. That led to all kinds of difficulties for me, and you know, and also then it complicated my relationship with my parish. I don't really want to say more than that. Okay. I think that's not an unusual situation in that kind of context. So then I came came from there to Shinrone and Kinnity and Dunkerrin. Well, that speaks for itself in the Midlands. I really loved it, so I did. It was a fantastic place to be. It was a wonderful parish to be in, and the people were extremely generous to me in running with all my harebrained schemes, and that were connected with faith and ministry. That was very important, and the charitable work that was done there for an array of causes. We raised so much money through, you know, charitable work that went to directly, all of it went directly to such good causes. And not only that, but it was backed by the parishes. They never took a cent for the expenses involved in all of these projects. Never took a cent to themselves. They backed everything to the hilt, and gave everything that came in by way of you know, by way of donations and whatever other fundraising that was involved in it. It all went to the charitable causes concerned, which was good and generous of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well, so it sounds like my knowledge of the people of South Offaly, North Tipperary.
I went there, I should say, then to, I don't want to leave it there. You were asking me about the full context. I came down then to Tinny.
Well, sorry, do you mind if I ask,
of course, go ahead.
Was it during your time in Shinrone that you met Susan? And
yes, it was, of course. When I arrived in Shinrone, I had been 10 years on my own. During that time, and I suppose when I was younger, I would have thought that to be single was an incredibly lonely life on the fundamental level. That we are actually made for a partner. We're made for life like that. That wasn't the case at all. Those 10 years were equally as animated as the life I have now. And as a single life then, I just realized that it just became so obvious to me that people who live a single life, they're not lonely people. They're not all the kind of you know, I don't know how you describe it, but they were latently there in my mind as being, you know, as being my prejudices, really, I suppose, but I didn't see them as such, and I wouldn't have thought of them as such. But it was a very animated life as a single person. But then I met Susan, and we were married, and that was a great event. I mean, all of my parishioners and people there was such an amazing amount of people at the wedding, and all the equine fraternity will remember it as well, with whom Susan had such a strong affiliation in the Midlands. She was working in Gurteen College, lecturing, and and she was the manager of the equine unit in Gurteen College for all of those years. And we were married there. She has 2 boys, of course, and they're living in Dublin. I have a daughter, Lauren's living in Dublin as well. They're in contact with each other and will I say cahoots with each other all the time over when they'll get down to us, when they won't, and they're brilliant, absolutely fantastic young people. We are blessed with them in every way we could imagine. We're blessed with them, and we have first grandchild has arrived now. Fania and Willie were married some years ago and their first baby arrived in March of this year.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that, Arthur, at all.
Yeah,
congratulations on being
into the whole realm of grandparent. which is it's like I sent a text message to my bishop at the time that this is a little bit naughty now, but I sent a text message to my bishop just the morning after that the first grandchild had arrived. Well, we've only one as yet, and so what I said is, I've known of grandparents in my parish, in my parochial life for years and years and years, as you will well know. I says to him, I never thought that I'd ever find myself going to bed at night with my wife to wake up in the morning with someone's grandmother beside me. And of course, that's the reality of it. But anyway, so it's great. Yeah.
Good, super. Great. Well, right, you're about to mention, and I suppose our time is moving on anyway, but your next move.
Oh yes, we went to Tinnahealy and Carnew. Yeah. Beautiful part of the country, lovely people, a huge amount of work to be done there in the parishes when we arrived too, and much enjoyed it. It's a very stable parish. It's a great parish to work in. We did, and I was very involved, of course, with the school there. That was one thing I had missed in Shinrone and that whole area, was I didn't have a school in my parish.
Okay.
And that was a very strange sort of experience, because the children from that whole area, Dunkerrin, Kinnity, Shinrone and Dunkerrin, I went to school either in Burr, in Rossgrey, or in Cloughjordan, but there was no school in our own area. So that was a great experience to get involved there. And it was there not for that long. It was for just about three years. And
well, maybe can I note that that's when we first met. I was in Gorey at the time. And you were ecumenical person for the diocese, is that right?
Yeah, the ecumenical director for ecumenism in the diocese.
I think that's how we connected.
First met, connected, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm maybe because we're running out of time here, but you moved to Wexford then, sorry.
You're not that far already, sorry, I've been walking. Yes, that was it. Working on ecumenism within the churches, which is a work I really like. I enjoy that. And it's true, it's primarily through a lot of social activity, I know, but it's not meant to be an ecumenism coming down from on top. That would be, for me, an important thing to note. It's not a kind of an ecumenism that we're, casting a particular type of ecumenical work on people as such. It's what I find most beneficial of it is the people actually having time to meet, talk together, interact with each other on a spiritual agenda, you know? With a spiritual focus, which leads them into conversations that they wouldn't otherwise have. Yes. And our ecumenical outings and things like that, which all have a strong spiritual flavor of and context, then people end up invariably having those discussions that they might never otherwise have, which I think is good. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you want to tell us about your current setting and
Wexford's been fabulous. I can't believe that I'm in my 10th year here in Wexford now. Okay. And it's But Wexford has been, it's a huge community, of course. It's the largest sort of community I've been in, hugely demanding. And one of my, before the lockdown and COVID pandemic, I was getting quite, I mean, Susan was a little bit worried for me. Because I was on, it seemed as though I was on a merry-go-round of activities. Okay. You start off in the parish and suddenly you find that you try something new, and if it works well, you drop some of them because you realize that, wow, that was wonderful, let's never do it again. But then other things you say, wow, that was wonderful, we definitely repeat that again.
Yeah.
But I mean, so there's a difference there. And but I gathered up such a calendar of events that took place throughout the year. It was crippling me in being able to have time available for people in ministry, or at least I felt it was in ministry. And this cycle went on from one thing to another, several of them in every month. Yeah. And I was thinking, how do I get off this, you know? And yet, without feeling that you were quite seriously letting quite a number of people down, if you were to cut any of these events, you know, because they covered such a large number of churches as well. There's 9 churches here and 9 communities or more in it as well. So that really became a challenge. But then when the restrictions came in, that really put... you know, really just cut all of that. So we're going back now again, and it's not without a little, you know, bit of anxiety as to how this will all come back into play again, you know.
Yeah.
So that's on a practical level, of course, all these things. Yeah. Totally.
But it's a blessing for you. I mean, well, you cover a large number of churches.
Yes.
You're being right in Wexford town and St. Iberius there, and you get to connect, I suppose.
We do, and we have a lot of people come to Wexford, a lot of tourists come through the place, but we also get a lot of people. Some of the most profound spiritual contact I've had with people, it's when people are in need, you can often have maybe a more meaningful interaction with them than when they're affluent. And we get quite a lot of people who are in need, you know, genuine need, coming to the church. And there's an opportunity there to help and be involved with them. But I don't have any agenda with them. But as they speak to me, then it's amazing what kind of issues that arise, and I can only give my reaction in terms of my particular personal faith journey and faith, you know, sort of my faith context to react to them. Not that I feel they have to take that on board. But I would like them to recognize that that's my reality.
Yeah.
As a person living, and that our lives touch each other because of that context as well.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about what Jesus meant when he was saying, you know, his ministry to the poor. Yeah. You know, that's very strong.
Yeah. And
we in this part of the world don't always have an opportunity to come so sharply in face to face with that. Yeah. But you do very much come sharply face to face with it in that context, you know, that on the street. So that has been a great experience, challenging experience, but a great experience too. So it has. But now the church is closed, and I'm removed from that. I'm wondering where those people are. And when I go down onto the street, you don't really, they're not so much there, you know. And you learn all kinds of things about people, because there are also those who are, sitting and begging on the streets. And they also come from, it's organized communities that are dropped off in buses and dropped off in cars to do professional begging on the street. Yeah. And very quickly I see where the reality of their situation is, because as they seek help from me, I will ask them about pursuing help on through the social welfare systems or through the various help organizations that the state provide. And then they say, they not understand me. They will claim that they don't understand my language and things like that. That's always a guard when that comes up, you know, as to where they're coming from. Because if you really are in a situation of need, that's not going to prevent you from pursuing a further kind of discussion. They just want to get away from me then.
And maybe that undermines the really people taking seriously the needs that are out there.
That's right, because some people don't go quite as far as to get to know people well enough to identify between one and the other. Yeah. So, and then you have a sense of, you know, the poor will be with you always. We have people who you can get along the ladder of help, for want of a better way of saying it, and you work with them with the various services that are available, and the services are brilliant here in Wexford. Powerful, brilliant, and extensive. Both voluntary and you know, state-provided services and state-backed services are great. And people go along and you can help them get through those various services. And then they just fall off the ladder again. They fall off the wagon again, so to speak, and they're right back where they started. And you're back again working with them through the system again. So, and that's part of it. You know, you don't give up on them.
No. Well, Arthur, I'm sure there are many other stories you could tell about your setting in Wexford. Maybe just to check in with you before we finish, if there's anything else that you wish to share with us, or anything that...
Yeah, I can't believe we've gone through half an hour, if that's what it is it?
35 minutes we're on now.
I'm sorry.
We're not too strict about that, but...
I've probably lost a lot of people. No, it's just that probably to say that as I've talked, I sort of feel I've spoken about an awful lot of practical things. Life is full of practicalities, but in my heart and in my mind, none of this has any meaning or has any depth or any purpose unless you have faith. And your faith with Christ is there and it's strong. I don't want to appear all religious now with it either. I don't like religious piety, but you know, in your heart and within yourself, faith is vitally important. It's your whole mental health. It's your you walk hand in hand with Christ every day.
Yeah.
You know he won't let you down. Others can let you down and do let you down. Some of the people you'll come across in life will remain faithful and dedicated your whole life through, and will be true and good. You'll never be able to identify who they are from the people that suddenly do let you down. Christ will never let you down. And that is my abiding strength, really, as I go through each of all these situations. Yeah, gives me confidence. Awesome. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Arthur. That's a powerful just note to finish on. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time with us on Tuesday.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for your good work. This is a great forum for people. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right.